right, guys, let's jump into our third and final episode of this show today. And I'm going to get Kayla to introduce to you our third guest.
Hey guys, so with us today we have Erin, and she has agreed to come and talk to us today about anxiety and what that means for her in her life. So Erin, we would like to hear a little bit about you before we get rolling with the questions.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys. So I am a 35-year-old single mom. I'm recently separated within the past year. I've got 3 kids, and mostly besides being a mom, I am a fitness and sports enthusiast. So I'm like living at the gym if I'm not parenting.
Yep.
And that's kind of me in a nutshell.
All right. Well, that's awesome. No, we appreciate you coming out and talking with us today. And we know that it's not easy, and that it's gonna be weird for some people. Some questions are gonna be like, oh, but we like to get out there and just ask the hard things and talk about the hard things so that we can better understanding and help other people through their own crap too. So we really appreciate you being here.
Definitely. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah.
Okay, so, Oh, no,
I was just going to say, and I think what we love is all the different perspectives of people that are in different phases or different spaces in your life. Because, like, for example, myself, I can't relate to having 3 kids. I have the 3 cats. But whereas, like, Lexi and you probably really relate because, Lexi has 3 kids. Well, Kayla will be able to relate because she's a mom too. And for me, it's awesome to learn this totally different perspective of somebody else that's living a different life to me, but same age. And, potentially maybe one day I'll have 3 kids and then I've learned this from you. So I also want to appreciate that you bringing your point of view today to the show.
Thank you.
And now, Kayla, you may go ahead.
Awesome. No, this is good. This is so good. So with our first question, Erin, how do you suffer from anxiety, would you say?
So I would say I have several different ways that I suffer from anxiety. My main one would be just day-to-day social anxiety. I also suffer from the odd panic attack, lots of overthinking, and then I go between episodes of depression, anxiety, and I don't want to say manic moods, but just crazy ups compared to my downs.
Okay.
Totally. Wow. Totally. And you can feel that it's like an extreme of either. It's like you have your days where you're like, it's just present, and then something triggers, and then all of a sudden now you're in this extreme zone. You're like, what the fuck?
Totally. Yeah.
I was just here and I was fine. And then now this happened and it triggered all these things. And now I'm up here. And we were saying in our last couple of interviews, actually, it's just kind of hard to see how to get back down when you're so high up or so low. And you just kind of need like those support systems and tools to kind of bring you back to reality, to kind of ground you a little bit.
For sure. It's kind of like you over exaggerate your ups sometimes because you were so inefficient in your downs. And so you just really focus on trying to bring everything back on track, but you almost go to the extreme the other way, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. No, it totally does. That was a really good point. Totally. And if you too live on this cloud 9 that you're only going to be happy when you're at those big high ups and you over glorify those moments, then it's like your downs almost feel even worse. It's like we want to win in those successes, but it's not like that's where you're going to be able to live all the time.
Yeah.
We totally get it. It's interesting. I think with body image, there was a lot of different answers. And when it comes to anxiety, it's almost like the same thing. It's just like, oh, how do you suffer from anxiety? Oh, just being alive.
Right.
It's not sad, but it's just, at least the commonality is it's not, everyone has that in common, is that life is just hard sometimes.
Yeah, totally. I get it. Totally get it. And then again, because I have kids, or I have a child. I shouldn't say I have kids. I have a child. So parenting, working out, life, all this stuff, there's a lot going on. And when you got a lot going on, it makes, even with Brandy, she's busy too. She's very busy. She doesn't have kids right now, but she's so busy. And it's the levels of anxiety that we end up having to talk to each other about and shift through it's crazy. I'm always like, wow, I'm so thankful that I actually have people that get what this is.
Yeah,
So
totally.
yeah, we'll roll into the next one. With you, so we've discovered that you pretty much get anxiety in many different scenarios. So how does this make you feel?
Um, Again, in different scenarios, it's you got different feelings, but really it's mostly just a feeling of failure at life, because you may be able to do, as a high functioning person with anxiety, the mandatory things that you need to do, but all the extras kind of get pushed to the wayside. You feel like you're failing as a mom because when you get overstimulated and are having anxiety, you often yell, or just for me, I'll either, take it out on my kids yelling, or I'll just abandon them and go find somewhere quiet to try to refocus. And so either way, I feel like I'm being a bad mom, whether I'm yelling or ignoring them. And then often with social anxiety, you just kind of feel like you're a bad friend because you either just don't make plans because 90% of the time you're going to bail, or you actually end up bailing on your friends. And some people just like, it's hard for people to understand why sometimes you're so heavily involved in your highs and then just kind of disappear for sometimes days, sometimes weeks, sometimes months, right?
No, I
And
know.
you just don't feel in control ever.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I mean, not the kid part, but I understand that. And I notice I'll do it to my spouse or someone around you. And I think my mom, she'll say the same thing, is that she never recognized that it was anxiety and she was always yelling at me. And then she would feel even worse about it. And until she recognized like that was just her reaction. And then she could dial it in. And then that just kind of spurred this thing where like when anybody yell, I would like be like freaked right out. And then I started doing it as an adult, so we were like really able to like dial that back and see where that comes to. And it's such an interesting journey when you're like, holy shit, that's just my reaction to this, and then you're able to identify it and maybe do it less. I mean, all of us have our moments, but yeah, it's like at first you're just like, what the fuck is wrong with me? And then you're like, oh, this is a reaction. Okay, I'm not just like an angry person.
Exactly. Sorry.
No,
Yeah.
say sorry. There's three of us. It's hard sometimes.
Yeah, we gotta just let it roll, and then new people, new conversation, new topic, and it's so good. Like I like the dynamic, anyways. So you've told us that you do have anxiety. You kind of told us how it makes you feel, which is super relatable. I know, like to the exact same extent, what you mean when you have your high highs and then you hit that low, and you just like disappear. Because I'm super guilty of that, and like. It's getting better now, but I am also, so that's very relatable. And then I think basically our next one is, have you ever had a panic attack, or do you suffer from panic attacks?
Yes, I definitely do. Lots of times, like I said, they are triggered by, say, overstimulation, like when the kids are yelling and the TV's on and the dog is barking, or, I'm in traffic trying to drive and concentrate and the roads are maybe slippery and the kids are asking me 1,000,001 questions about what they see out in the world.
Sorry, that's not funny.
Right? And then also just sometimes it's just like a complete random, like you can't even figure out what triggers it, but just out of nowhere, whether it's just everything in your life crashing down and your brain is realizing that you're going through so much stress and it just wants to shut off, but instead of shutting off, it creates an anxiety panic attack, and it's just something you got to deal with.
Flight. Totally. I get that. And I know you said that you just are going through separation. I'm really sorry to hear that. And I know the feeling that comes with that. And that was probably when I suffered kind of the worst with my anxiety and depression, was just when I first separated, because I just didn't know how to live life. I lived it the same for so long, for 8 years. And now all of a sudden I was like, who the fuck am I? And then it questioned everything, and it just pulled me so deep. And so, yeah, I totally understand that. And then it trickles out to everything in your life, and you just question everything. And it's like, you should question a lot of things, but not like as much.
Yeah. Question yourself.
Yeah. And then I just feel like too, if once you do that and you feel like, I don't know if this is explained, but you know that like on Alice in Wonderland, when she's like falling down the rabbit hole and it's like all these things are swirling, like that's what I feel like when you start falling down that anxiety like tunnel kind of, and you're just kind of grasping at everything and you can't get anything, and then it makes it even
100%.
worse. And then that leads to the panic attacks. Like mine is just mainly driving, but I imagine it's kind of the same thing, just different situation.
Yeah, definitely. It's that whole, just trying to find yourself. It's not just, with the separation, but I'm sure a lot of moms can attest. You kind of just give up your identity and give up yourself when you are a mom. And then all of a sudden your kids are growing up and you have no idea who you are. And then, add in the separation, and now you've got to figure out what you want to be when you grow up, because, you've spent 10 years at home with kids, just focusing everything on them and your husband, right? So it doesn't necessarily always have to go along with a separation, but there's just that shift in life that, creates anxiety in a lot of people, because we don't know where to go. We've been focusing so much on everyone else, and now we've got to figure out what we want and who we are.
Yeah, it's a shakeup. My mom's kind of going through the same thing right now, and it's very interesting. I'm really glad that you said that and you brought that up, because although I can't relate on a personal level, I hear that a lot from moms, and it's really, I think, important that you guys do have these discussions, so that you can help each other heal and learn how you kind of can move past that. And like you said, most women are moms for so long, and then they're like, who the fuck am I without my kids?
Yeah.
And then you start that, I imagine you would start that like panic of like when you first graduated high school and you all of a sudden now you have to be an adult. You just now have to figure out who your identity is outside of just not just being mom. Please don't take it that way, but like, that's what most moms put their whole entire worlds into their children.
Everything.
And they lose like who they are outside of that. And then all of a sudden now the kids are grown and don't need you. And you're like,
yeah,
what do I do?
But
and
I'm
it's
mom.
just like high school. Like, you have a resume that has nothing on it because you've literally been a mom for 10 years. Someone asks you a question in an interview, and your response to dealing with stressful situations is, I can manage 3 kids at the dinner table. Like, you're just starting from scratch again, just like high school. And it's like scary as hell.
It's so
Totally fair. You guys, that's why I look up to moms so much, and that's why I think it's so important. We're going to actually have I think a whole month dedicated to this kind of stuff, because I think you guys all relate so much, and there's people are so afraid to talk about it, but you hear this from so many moms, and I think it's really important that you guys do get that time and not feel guilty to take some time to be like, hey, I need my own identity too, right? Like, Erin and Kayla, I know you both take time to go to the gym, and even if that's the small amount of time you get, that's your time. That's what you get to control, and what you enjoy. And I'm sure you feel super empowered, but in the same time, your anxiety probably makes you feel guilty for taking that time away.
Always. I always feel like a bag of shit for needing my own time. And I'm like, no. That's not the way this goes. We get to have time. We brought these tiny forces into the world. Yes, we deserve time for ourselves. And that's like the thing I want to say about that is like, people sometimes seem to think like mom's getting a break is like showering by yourself, or going to the bathroom and not being bothered, or eating food without being asked 900 questions. But like, those aren't actually breaks. So I just want to make that very clear. Like, it's important to have time away from your kids. And I think so many people will probably tear me apart and argue with me on that. But I'm just like, for me, I cannot give 130% of myself to my relationship or my child, because I will be so empty after and have nothing more to give. And that's when you start getting into like the downward spiral of it. And like, I notice that right away when that happens for me. I'll be like, if I go like 2 or 3 days without really doing anything for myself, I notice it. And then I'm like, it starts to build and build and build. And if I let it go for like the whole week to Friday, then I'm a kind of a nutcase. And I don't really like that. But it's like, that is why it is important to have time to yourself. Your anxiety will eat you alive if you just keep trying to serve everyone else without serving yourself.
No, that's so accurate.
Totally.
Like, so many times. And I definitely think you should have a show dedicated to it. So many people don't want to talk about how hard it is to be a parent. Doesn't necessarily mean a mom.
Parent.
And there's a lot of people that,
Totally.
we love our children to death, but we resent being parents. So it needs to be talked about so that people feel less alone, just like anxiety and depression and mental health.
Oh yeah, we you know, at first when we started the show, we're like, ooh, can we talk? And then we talked for hours, and we're like, ooh, what kind of topics? And all of a sudden, I'm like, holy fuck, I have content
Awesome.
to chew. Like, you know, and it's not great, but it's like it's because we're like, wow, there's a really big missing chunk of real conversations here. Not everyone's going to agree. Not everyone's going to have the same experience, but you know what we can do? We can take so many pieces of this puzzle and make a better picture of the real world and what life really is, and not just what we see in front of us or what we've curated around us or anything. Like, let's really see all angles and let's all help each other. And I really love that. Like I said, I can't relate, but I'm just sitting here like absorbing your story as a mom. And then I feel like if I ever have kids, I'm so much better equipped just from listening to you guys' stories.
Oh, I love that. That's kind of what we want to, and I'm glad you know, as we go on more and more, that we get other people too that do have children, because yeah, and then we're going to get into that topic. I like that we've kind of rolled into that idea. We're brainstorming as we're going, but so we did. So did I ask you about panic attacks?
You did, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, sometimes I just get like lost in the sauce.
So do I.
So then, with all those things out of the way, at what age did you realize this was an issue for you?
So talking about how, you know, we need to be more open about conversations, I would say that, you know, I finally kind of put it together that it was an anxiety, depression situation. Sometime after having kids, probably within the last 5 years, I've just put the pieces more and more together, because people are starting to share more on social media and talk about these things, and it opens your eyes and you actually realize, like you were talking, sorry, I think it was Brandy talking about to your mom about how her anxiety would be yelling at you and that would create your anxiety. And you look back at these things that you never realized were anxiety, but now, even though I only noticed it was an issue within the past 5-10 years, I've actually suffered from anxiety my whole life. Just childhood memories that pop up that I thought were just a stress moment or a phobia were actually very, very much anxiety related.
Yeah. And you're just like, holy fuck, I wish I would have known this then, because at least I could start tackling it then. Right. And then now you're like, oh, now I got to tell everybody, because I mean, how much relief do you feel at least knowing? I mean, there's days, obviously, but I mean, I don't know about you, but looking back to when you first identified it, you're probably a million times in a better position than you were then to deal with all of it.
Yeah.
And it's such a growth pattern. And then you like get empowered to be like, fuck yeah, I remember when even just looking people in the eyes, like I used to walk in the gym, and I mean, I still do it sometimes, but I would just stare at the ground because I was like, I couldn't make eye contact with people. It just freaked me out. So I just like, I'm like, oh, everyone can just think I'm a bitch, but I have really bad anxiety, and be like, oh, I seen you at the gym. Like, yeah, I literally seen the floor.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
That's the same here. I'm the same. I can't really make eye contact or get super involved with people in the gym, especially if I don't know them. And I know that makes me sound kind of shifty, but like if it's between that and getting through my workout, then I will straight up not eye contact or anything.
Yeah.
I'm very
but now I'm like, okay, why do you feel like I've had to really unpack this? Because I'm like, okay, it's been like 4 or 5 years now. It's just, you're not the new girl at the gym. Like, what is it that, like, why can't you walk in there with your head held high? So I'll challenge myself, be like, you cannot look down from this set to this set, you know? And now it's like, I just don't care. It's like one of those thought patterns I've had to rework, but it was just like, I look back to when I first started going to motion like 6 years ago. And yeah, I would just like hide in the women's section and like, you wouldn't know I existed at the gym. And now I'm just like, whatever. Love me or hate me. It's fine. Oh, growth.
No, I get it. I'm the same. So yes. Okay. So fairly young. I think that was the same for me too, Erin, when me and Brandy did our kind of conversation with each other about it. We've been talking on and off anyways, but it was the same. Like, I think it's always been there. It just never had a label. And it's funny because we just talked to Hillary, and Hillary was saying the same thing. She's like, I just didn't know what it was. I just thought that it was just like that. And I was so very surprised by that, because I was like, me too. Like, no one ever really talked to me about why I might be such a spaz or why I take things so personally. And it's like, you really don't really understand what's going on until you get to the root of it. And it's like the root of 90% of my bullshit is my anxiety.
100%. And even just, you know, the stigma behind it, not necessarily that people knew that it was anxiety when we were kids, but it was just like, suck it up. You're scared of public speaking. So public speak more. You know, like, oh, you're just so shy. You're such a cute little kid hiding behind your dad's leg. It's just that you're shy. You'll get over that, you know. So many different things that you look back and you're like, man, if I knew that was anxiety, and, you know, if I knew that this would trigger me a certain way, maybe, you know, I could have got the help I needed. Maybe my parents would have understood me more. Maybe I wouldn't have had to be so terrified every time they were going around the class and it was your turn next to read and you had to read your sentence 500 times in your head and then you still messed up on the date because saying dates in French is hard as fuck.
Yes. Yeah, totally get that. I totally get that.
That's a bad one. Like, oh, it's so funny. Even when we do our little pregame and we'll get into our pregame and we'll get like pretty much like all of our combo pre-discussed, and then literally, I don't know what happens in my brain, Brandy, but we go right into record time, and I feel like it's for you too, but we always get like that one little blooper area where we're like, holy crap, we're gonna have to edit this out. Like,
oh, that's why we don't bother like starting the recording right away. We'll have to talk, like we'll pregame and then we'll pregame in the actual podcast, like to be like, okay, this is what we're gonna do, right? We said we were gonna do this, and that's like soon as like that performance anxiety hits, you're just like, my name is Applesauce, and I live in, I want to say Canada, and I'm really smart, I swear. I know English. It's like that performance anxiety. It's like different forms of anxiety that attacks you at different times of your life, and especially when you're doing new things, for sure.
So that actually kind of wraps us into the next one really well. What would you say that you feel triggers your anxiety and or panic?
So like I discussed before, my panic attacks is definitely overstimulation. It's a huge one. Just my anxiety is obviously things that you were just kind of bringing up, unknowns, new situations, and then things that I know are coming, but remind me of past negative situations or known stressors in my life, but things that I know that I have to do anyways. I'll just overthink, you know, something that was terrible that happened before and all the negative things that could happen again in the same type of situation, right? It's just the,
that history is just inevitably going to repeat itself. So you get into that same scenario and your brain's like, well, yeah, you got an accident. For me, it's like, oh, you got an accident once, so that's what's going to happen every single time you drive. That's going to be the result, even though you've driven 18 million times. One time you got an accident,
for sure.
But that's just going to happen again. That's just your luck. You're like, cool, awesome. Thanks. Cool, I wasn't thinking that until I got in the car, but here I am now. Fantastic. Yeah, I feel that. I feel that on a deep level.
Me too. Oh, it's so like, triggers are just such a... Did we talk about triggers? No, we're
talking about that now.
Yeah, cool. I'm like, my brain, for whatever reason, I'm sorry, guys. Like, my brain goes in my butt, out my butt. But anxiety. Triggers are such a tricky little thing, and it's like, do you feel? I just want to ask you, with your triggers, have you gotten kind of a handle on them?
There's some that, you know, triggers that I have, you know, tracked, and so because I know that they're there, I either avoid certain triggers or I just know to expect that, you know, in this situation I'm probably going to end up having an anxiety attack or a few low days after I'm in that situation. Unfortunately, some of them you can't really avoid, but knowing your triggers and knowing which ones you have control to avoid is huge. That's for sure.
Okay, that's awesome. No, I think it's the same for Brandy and I. I just wanted to ask because it's like, we talk about triggers, and I feel like when we talked to Hillary, her triggers were a little different. Like for Brandy and I, we definitely have the same one when it comes to driving. I feel like hers, and Hillary too. Like we get anxiety from driving because we've been in accidents. So I don't know if you've been in an accident or anything like that, but driving with kids is like driving with like a velociraptor in your car.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how it's like. I don't know how normal, like I call them normal, but normal people, how normal moms have like more than one kid in their vehicle and they drive without killing everybody. Because I'm like, one kid asks me a question. My son asks me a question while we're driving and I go into legit panic mode. I panic so hard because it's like I'm trying to focus on rush hour traffic and be really aware of the traffic. And it's like, if I give him my attention, I'm scared I'm going to get in an accident because I lose my awareness when I'm trying to respond. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? You're crazy. Why are you so crazy? Like, answer your kid.
I'm the same way. I'm just like, nope, sorry, I can't talk right now. Or I'll just say, I don't know. Like, that's my legit answer for my kids most of the time when I just can't deal. I'm like, I don't know that answer. It's been a while since I've been in school. Ask your teacher tomorrow. Ask your grandpa. Like, I'm sorry, I just don't know. Like, totally avoid the trigger.
Yeah, no, I'm same. And like, the worst is recently my son will be like, oh, mom doesn't know. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Now me saying I don't know is me, I'm stupid. I don't know how that plays out in my brain. I'm like, why? Your 5-year-old kid's not calling you stupid. Like, that's just anxiety. Frick.
Well, it's just the oversenses because you're like, okay, I'm already overloaded, making sure that the physical vehicle's fine, and now you want me to use my brain to think about a question. It's like when you turn down the music to look to see the address. It's like that noise is like stimulating my brain. I need all my focus to go through my eyeballs right now.
You brought that up. Same.
I do that too. Like, and not even just finding an address, but when I'm highway driving, every time I go through an actual town and I'm driving slower, and there's just like more people and things going on, not just like the random traffic that's passing you on the highway, I always turn down the music. Like when I drive to Dawson, every time I go through Beaver Lodge, Heist, like turn down the music. Yeah.
Too much. It's too much. It's too much going on at once. I'm like, whoa, my brain is I'm like a fairy. I can only process one emotion at a time here. Like, don't overload me.
So relatable. And it's funny you said the Dawson, like, because I'm from, well, Brandy used to live out there too, but I grew up on Hilltop Estates, which is legitimately between Beaver Lodge and Wembley.
Okay.
So I used to commute to Dawson, and I drove a really old car, and I've never been in an accident, and I had the worst anxiety driving that highway. I don't even know. Driving people. Because I'm like, I think actually I figured it out, you guys. What for me is my social anxiety, the need to people please. And so that I've been living in that mode for so long that it's become so very ingrained in me, and it's difficult now to drive and think of myself. So because that often I'm like, why are you like dishonoring your own boundaries or dishonoring your own capabilities to appease people in traffic you don't even know? Like, what the fuck? Like, pay attention to the road for sure. Be aware of your surroundings. But for the love of God, do not have a panic attack in your car because you're worried about maybe you didn't let that person in or whatever. Like, no. It's, you know what? When you're on the road, other people have just as much fucking responsibility to be aware. That shit does not lie fully on one human being. So that, for me, was like, okay, I don't have to be such a stress case in my car because I can literally take what I need to do and put that ahead. I don't have to sit here and put everyone ahead of me, and then I'm mad and pissed off and stressed out.
Totally.
So weird.
Totally. Yeah, I get that.
Just like I was in my accident recently, so I don't have a vehicle, and I spent the first 6 months walking. And when I went to go back to driving my son to school, it was such a shock to me. And I was like, why am I getting stressed out? Why am I tense? Why am I angry? And it's like, oh, I'm not walking and just enjoying everything. Right. Okay. So now how do we get back to that state of zen? Because we need to go there.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So, Erin, how would you say that this affects your life the
I
most?
would say that it's just avoiding certain scenarios just so that I can cope. And I don't know. And then also, like, not only do I just avoid specific scenarios, then I also, like I said, try to force myself to deal with my anxiety in certain aspects of life by like facing it head on. So it affects my life all around because, you know, sometimes it's just like the most irrational thing. And I avoid fueling up my vehicle until it's on empty because it gives me anxiety to go fuel up. Once I'm fueling up, I'm not anxious. I'm fine. I'm filling my vehicle up just fine. I have no idea why getting gas stresses me the fuck out, but it does. You know, like I don't specifically go grocery shopping because it stresses me the fuck out, especially with kids. So I was using click and collect, and now I use this online app where they deliver the groceries specifically to my door. Just certain things like I'm a terrible mom. I don't take my kids to
No,
I don't know.
not
I
terrible.
shouldn't say that. Okay. But like, I'm just that mom that doesn't go to any, like, my
That's what your
kids don't
anxiety
get to
tells
go
you.
to like the Easter in the park, any of that stuff, because I know as soon as I get there, one or all of them are going to start throwing tantrums either while we're there or because we're leaving or something. And it's just too much for my brain to handle. So I just avoid it altogether.
I'm the same. I'm literally the exact same as that. It's so refreshing. I think too, Brandy, we've talked a little bit about it, but like I cannot. And I thought for the longest time, this is a really refreshing thing to say right now, but I thought for the longest time that I was fucked in the head and that something was wrong with me because I couldn't grocery shop with my kid. I was like, what's wrong with you? You can't even go and manage and it's just like the social anxiety, the being in the crowd, and then having a child that's busy and darting all over the place, doesn't want to wear his mask, and it's like, oh my freaking God. So yeah, no,
totally. I have a grown child, but he's pretty good at wearing his mask though. I'm just kidding.
Oh,
I hate the arrows.
I shut down. I was like, I can't do this. Yeah, I was like, someone please just hold my hand through it. Someone's like, you're going down the wrong way. And I'm like, I seriously want to be a toddler and throw myself on the ground right now and cry because I'm just like so overwhelmed with everything right now. And it just came in to get a few things.
Worse probably now for all three of us just over this last year. But yeah, having the kids and going grocery shopping, that does not make you a terrible person. If you have a way that you can go without the kids, always try and do that. Because I mean, if it comes down to you losing your shit and being like, because once you lose your shit, that puts you off, that sets your anxiety into another level. Because then you go back and it's like a loop. You go into the parent guilt where you're like, I yelled at my kid, and then you're like, oh man, and it's like, it's so impossible. And then really all I have to say about that is don't worry what other people think. It doesn't matter. Yeah. It just doesn't matter. They're not with you in that moment with you and your anxiety and your child. They don't know what's going on in your situation. Let it go. Forget about them. I literally go in the grocery store like horses in a race with little blinders on. I don't see you. I don't hear you. I'm not making full eye contact because it's just like I need to get in and get out, and I do it to protect myself. I'm not here to engage with the population when I'm out. Like I'll go to the park or something if I want to engage with people because it's weird. It's a weird time right now.
Yeah, totally. I actually enjoy like the lineups and the spacing just for that purpose. Like a lot less social anxiety when you're not forced to interact with people. Like here, herd the cattle, stay over here. I do not like the arrows though. I feel like that stresses me out because I'm like, I literally would be in the store for 5 seconds if I could walk straight shot to where I need to go instead of walk up and down every aisle. But whatever.
I know.
Totally. And if you're finding ways too, like if you're finding ways you're like, hey, this is a huge trigger. This is just going to piss me and myself off. I'm a single mom. It's like not necessarily like you can just drop the kids and go grocery shopping at any given time. If you found a way to make that work for you guys so you don't have to spend all that time stressing, I think that's an amazing step towards growth. And I think that's just providing for yourself and your kids and setting you guys up to have more successful days. If you're like, hey, this isn't working for me, but there's another way that I can get what I need. Like you're getting your groceries, you're getting fed. Who cares how you get it, as long as you're comfortable and happy. So if you found a way around that, I think that's a perfect way to not waste time and stress and energy on that certain thing when it's not necessary for you, right? You could spend that time with your kids or having a bath, escaping from your kids, not stressing about getting the groceries with all three of them. So I think that's awesome to flip that around and just find, outsource your energies and your things that you don't do great in, right? Just like a business. If you're busy doing something and something's not working, outsource that to someone else who can do it for you.
That is exactly right.
That's awesome.
Do you have, Erin, any anxious moments in your life that you will always hold on to?
I think I kind of mentioned this one before when I was just talking about realizing how anxious I really was as a kid. But I'll always remember, like, whenever my dad would take me anywhere, hugging onto his leg and just being completely terrified by the social situation, all these adults that I was supposed to intermingle with, because my dad was a minister and he had to be out in public all the time. And I just turned around and grabbed the wrong leg and looked up, and it wasn't my dad. And it was the most terrifying moment of my life. I probably have nightmares about it still. And then honestly, like you girls said about anxiety in the gym, I'm the same way. But I think it stems mostly from moments in my life, that terrifying high school hallway walk with your head down. I still, to this day, if I walk past high school kids on the street, put my head down. I'm 35 years old, and walking into any gym, I will I specifically don't wear my glasses in the gym so that I can't see people's face. Like,
Oh, girl, I feel this so deep. I've done this so many times where I'll just take them off and put them down for my entire workout.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm ignorant
No,
to the people being around me.
Same. Oh my God, I love this. I love that we're actually all able to share that we did. I pull my hat down so low. Like even today, I was in the gym today, and I have my hat up high because I get sweaty and I push it up with my hands. But then the second my hat comes up too far past my forehead and like my whole face is visible, then I'm just like, oh my God, people can see me. And immediately just yank it right back down. Like my brim of my hat was literally at the top of the bridge of my nose. I don't think
Totally. That's why hats are great.
Yeah, the worst part about not wearing your glasses is you randomly smile because you don't know if people are smiling at you, and then you overthink if you smiled at the wrong person or somebody's boyfriend or what, and you're like, oh God. Oh God.
Shit.
Now my anxiety's through the roof.
Yeah, or someone's like, yeah, I see you. You're like, yeah, I didn't have my glasses on, so cool. Yeah, that's why I'm just like, don't talk to me at the gym or like text me because chances are I just don't see. I look.
And I guess that's kind of like the funny thing about like I'm not a mask. I do not like to wear masks. I'm just gonna say it. People are gonna have whatever opinion they want about that. I just don't like to wear them. And so the only thing that I have found about masks is that it makes social interactions, the ones you don't want to have, very simple because they can't see that you're smiling. So often I'll smile at someone in my mask and then I'm like, hey, you don't have to smile. They can't see your face. Look away. And then I just look away and dart somewhere else. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of how superheroes feel with their masks. Okay, awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah, totally.
And then we are rolling into our last one of the more heavier stuff. And this last one is, is this something that you face alone, or do you have people in your life that you can reach out and talk to when you have anxiety or going through anxious states?
I definitely have people, and like I said, the more that people are talking about it, the more I realize that there's people that are suffering, and I've been able to, even connect with friends that I didn't realize were suffering as well. So I do have a couple people that I consistently go to for support, and we both know that we go through all those down moments. So sometimes, our entire conversation is apologizing to each other for like not talking for 3 days. And then we don't talk for another 3 days. But then I still a lot of the time suffer in silence. I find I do, however, like social media. I have my Instagram. A lot of people probably, are like, oh, another gym girl just looking for the likes. But I share a lot of my lows now on social media. And it's not necessarily even to help other people, which I know it does help them to not feel alone, because I feel the same way when people talk about it. But it's more I use it like a personal vlog of like my diary, like when I just put it out there, and whether someone reaches out to me or not, like it's not for attention. It's just somewhere for me to put those downs and those emotions that I'm going through and just kind of get them off my chest when I am suffering in silence.
Okay.
Totally. Yeah, it's like once you can put it out there, you can almost like release it a little bit more. It's not something that you're holding on to. It's kind of like it's a totally a digital journal. And then you can go back, and I love the memories that pop up and you're like, wow, I've grown so much from this time. And it just kind of like relights your fire again to keep pushing on your path
Totally.
of where you're going to. Okay, so Erin, I just thank you so much for sharing all your different perspectives so far, and all the, we like to say that we have messes and stresses, and then we have successes, and it's the thing about sharing our story is crazy. With already in the three of us, we already really relate to a lot of things. So I just want to thank you again for sharing all the harder parts of your struggle, and I'm really excited for the next part, because let's talk about some of the successes that you've had in your journey over the last 5 years, or probably longer, just not to your knowledge. But what would you say is something that you have used or do use for your anxiety?
Definitely some things. Obviously, we've talked about this. My main thing would be the gym. The gym is like huge. Even before I knew that this was anxiety, I always went to the gym just for, my personal therapy. There was a point in time where I went to talk to someone and they didn't diagnose me with anxiety. I would say they just diagnosed part of it, and I was on meds for depression, but I found that the gym was able to help me get off those meds.
Yep.
And then on top of that, I recently discovered, especially when I'm having anxiety attacks, keeping busy or doing something that distracts my brain, like a puzzle or even playing like Candy Crush on my phone,
Yep.
really helps a lot. And then also I like the solitude thing. I have a little salt lamp in my room. I lock my door. I kind of shut out the world, and I actually even I'm like a child with my Victoria's Secret blanket that I'll snuggle while I'm in here.
No, it's making your environment cozy. And I think me and Kayla will say that's number one for us too, is the gym, like exercising, some sort of movement,
Yeah.
because I think we've all probably had those moments where we couldn't gym for an injury or whatever, but some form of movement. Like I know Kayla down on the island, she's just like always out and doing stuff in the world and in the hikes and stuff. So just physically moving the body and getting that physical energy out of there, so it doesn't pent up in your brain.
Totally.
That's how I kind of feel that. Sorry, that's kind of how I feel. It's like one of those things that's like, if I'm just sitting here for days on end, it's just like, and I can't have that physical release, it just goes up to my brain and it just causes this bunch of chaos up there. So what would you say, so the gym helps you the most? Is there any other tools or any other thought patterns that you have that you work with when it comes to those moments where you're just going kind of out of control? Is there anything that helps you dial back from that, besides, like, obviously you can't like drop and go to the gym right now, or drop in the grocery store and do burpees?
Yeah.
I mean, you could. I
That
wouldn't
would be
judge.
pretty cool. I feel like
I'd
should
be
probably try
impressed.
that.
Be like, if you do that, make sure someone records it. Be like, hey, Brandy, I took your advice. I was starting to panic, so I just started doing burpees in the middle of the grocery aisle.
I like that.
Yeah. Honestly, like I find for me at the gym, like the movement is huge, but it's just also like the distraction. So like I said, something that takes my brain off of what's going on, and even just something that like I'm in control of, right? So keeping busy, like doing chores. I'm in control of whether or not all my laundry gets folded. Obviously sometimes the mounds and mounds of laundry cause me stress, but if I just create a little list of small tasks and just work on them one by one, that really helps just to keep my brain on something else other than the massive overthinking of what is stressing me out at that moment.
Yeah, like showing up for your responsibilities instead of and just being like, I have to show up, let's say, to be a mom and do the groceries or clean the house or do the laundry, and it's like, until I can calm down and think about this thought like realistically, I'm just gonna do not monotonous, but just kind of like brain numbing things until my brain can just chill the fuck out.
Totally.
And doing lists so that not everything feels like super overwhelming. It's like, yeah, I'm just going to go to the list. I'm going to follow the list.
Yeah, that list is like huge. And I find it's just great if you make one at the night before or even the morning, depending on how your moods are. Because sometimes I know I feel way more productive at night than I do in the morning. I'm like, no, today's not going to be the day that I do the list I made last night. But when you just make it all little, small, attainable tasks, even if you go through and only highlight 5 out of your 10 tasks that you had, even if it's something as simple as like, I will put on there every day, make my bed, shower, get ready, drink your 3 liters of water, and I put 1, 2, and 3, and like do your 30 minutes of cardio, but I'll do 10, 20, 30. So even if you're not highlighting it all, you can see at the end of the day that even if you had an anxious day, you were still productive, and it makes you feel successful.
Totally. I think Kayla's big on her notes.
Oh, so big.
Yeah. She's like, hold on, let me write this all down. I'm like, yes, I love this.
All the
I get
time.
this. And you need them. And I think that because I don't know if you guys feel this way, but I always feel like the way I look at anxiety sometimes is like you're driving and you have so much mud on your windows and you just can't see where you're going. And it's like you just need to kind of clean some of that off. And I feel like if you compartmentalize what you have to do, you can kind of see where you're going a little bit more, right? Like you have a little bit more map. You can see where you're going. You're not so scared of just driving blind with all this mud on your fucking window and you can't see. And then it just causes so much more stress.
No, it's the worst.
Yeah. So we're like, hey, this is our plan. This is what we're going to do. These are the things we have to do it. It makes the execution and dealing with the anxiety that comes up from executing a lot easier to deal with when you already know kind of like you already mapped out what you're kind of looking to conquer.
Totally. Like when you get overwhelmed with stuff, you know, you think about all the things that you have to do. Typically that's when you just like shut down and do nothing. And I definitely have those days, but the lists and like the compartmentalizing is like huge. That's for sure.
I know. I was shocked I nailed that one out of the park. Usually I really struggle with English words, so I was proud I pulled that one out.
Apparently I can't say that word today.
No, it's okay. We get to the end. It happens. Would you say that, and I mean, this can be in your life or on an online space. Is there anybody that you have that you could potentially share that influences you when it comes to working through your anxiety?
Like I said, there's been a couple people that I've kind of connected with, and the main person I would say is my girlfriend, Kayla Gunderson. She is just so super successful and she struggles hard with anxiety, and she's kind of the one that got me on the list. I at first was so against it. I was like, you know what, I've made lists before and at the end of the day they're not even filled out. And she's like, you know what, your lists probably have too big of tasks. She's like, literally put down, like, brush your teeth on your fucking list. And if you did that at the end of the day, even if that's the only thing you did, like, you were successful. And she's just always talking about, you know, if you get to the gym, and even though it's your releaser, sometimes going to the gym creates anxiety. She's like, just get there and be like, okay, what can I do first? Baby steps, one thing at a time.
Yep.
Put on my shoes. Okay, success. You know, go do bicep curls, even 1 set of 10. Okay, success. And she's just always my biggest cheerleader, and she's helped me so much through this, like just in the past few months for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, you're hype people. And I think, I don't know where this came from in our lives where we always feel like we only get to celebrate the big goals and the big wins. But like you said, if you celebrate all those little tiny ones throughout the day, and you look back, you're like, wow, I had a really successful day. If you're like, oh, I want to make $2 million. And then you look back in your day and you're like, well, I failed fucking hard because I didn't make 2 million. Like your goals, like that's not attainable in a day, right? So It's breaking it down to being like, okay, can I do the fundamentals and basics? And when I've nailed that, let's add, you know, okay, let's push it a little bit in my fitness goal, or let's try to add a yoga into my life, or, you know, not just thinking that your goals only have to be the big ones. Like you said, brushing your teeth, showering, and making the bed for the day. Some people, or some days you don't even feel like you can do that. So the days that you can, like, fucking count everything as a win.
Totally.
You have to. And
it's like the gratitude attitude, right? Like, I don't have to work out today. I get to work out today. And then when you're like, you think about, when you get there, you're like, holy shit, there's people in the world that don't even get to work out or can't afford it or physically can't. And you're like, holy shit, I guess I should be a little bit more grateful. And then it kind of like lights a fire in your butt. And it's like just switching that perception and perspective and that mindset of like gratitude and I get to, instead of I have to, and I'm in a lack of something, or I'm not going to be as strong as that person, or the comparison game or something like that.
Yeah, totally. And especially like with being a mom, like we're constantly comparing ourselves to you know, these Pinterest moms that do everything, or the highlight Instagram mom that, you know, always has her kid dressed up for every school event in some perfect brand new outfit. And we're like, we didn't even do anything today. But if you break it down into those small things, you know, did you feed your kids breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Did you read them a book before bed? Did you help them with their homework? All these little things that you, at the end of the day, if you just don't look at all those things, you feel like such an unsuccessful person. But in reality, you're doing so much. Just because your house isn't spotless at the end of the day doesn't mean you were an imperfect parent that day.
Totally. And like, to be honest, I maybe know one or two, but do you guys really know any Pinterest moms, or are they just like highlight photos from the like one part of that whole entire day that went maybe well? Not saying they don't exist, but I mean, you know, like, I think that's the biggest thing to wrap our head around is like, I don't know about you guys, but I do try to like be real, but for the most part, I try to pick the best picture.
Oh, totally.
Being a photographer, that's kind of like my thing, right? So it's like,
I think,
you know, it's hard to wrap our
sorry.
No.
No,
So saying, I think it's hard to wrap your head around that. Like, there are Pinterest moms, but a lot of them, like, they're just like any other influencers. Like, is that real reality, or is that just the picture in the 1 second that things were good and the rest is chaotic? I'm excited for more moms to show up more real and like show those real photos. I was like, this is actually how my, you know, 1-year-old birthday went. It wasn't perfect.
Yeah, totally. That's definitely, I mean, with fitness, with moms, with anything, you know, we have to realize that what we're comparing ourselves against is people's highlight reels.
Yep. And I mean, it's great we share the bad too, and that has to come out more. But I think until then, we have to like remind ourselves. I do all the time. I'm like, okay, you're following all bikini athlete models about to go into prep, and you're wondering why your abs don't look like theirs.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Right?
Don't even get me started.
So,
go look at my last.
I know that was last episode, but you know what I mean? It's just like, you know, then as moms, you must have to sit there and look and be like, okay, well, she's rich. She's got a nanny. She's got a chef. She's got her parents there full time. You know, like, it's really, I can imagine as a mom, it's really easy to get caught up in that comparison game, forgetting that there's other people that help. And you guys have been single, like Kayla, you're not now, but you know, you've been single moms. A lot of these people have hired help. So to compare to one person that's running an army to an army that's raising an army is like, it's just not comparable. And I can imagine the struggle that comes with. But that will be a whole parent conversation that we'll have one day, and I'm very excited to learn. But it's so good. Yeah, it'll be good. I'm excited because it's just something I only know from like being an older sister at 12 kind of perspective. So I'm excited to hear from you guys a little bit more. So yeah, I can push more on just being a cat mom. But if you could go back and tell yourself some advice when you first realized you have anxiety, what would you say to yourself now?
I would definitely tell myself, and I should still tell myself this to today, to this day, I would just say, don't suffer in silence. Like, you're not alone. Don't be afraid to ask for help and talk about it.
Totally. I feel like that's the common thing that everyone has said almost to every time we ask this question is, don't be afraid to talk about it.
Well, because people are, and that's what the stupid ass thing is. Like, pardon my French, or don't pardon it, whatever you want. But like, that is so retarded. Wherever this context came from, that we need to like bottle shit up and not talk about it, is like, okay, so then tell me how that feels when you're like 20 years down the road, not dealt with any of your stuff. I'm pretty sure you're oozing out toxicity. Like, why would you want to do it like that? Why wouldn't you just want to unravel it at the start and like go from there, rather than, you know, be like 60, 70 trying to not be an asshole?
Yeah, I agree. I don't know where mental illness became a thing, where it was just like, you know, it didn't have an identity, and then it had a bad identity, and now it's like, okay, but it's like, it could be good. Let's talk about it. Let's be open about it, and let's know that not everyone's going to heal the same. Not everyone's going to feel it the same, but we all can be compassionate in the fact that some days you just have to give other people a break, and you have no idea what's going on in their head, or, you know, the judgments. And I'll be the first to admit I've been a judgmental person. And then all of a sudden I've been like, I've been in the situation. I'm like, holy shit. I understand now why this person reacted this way. Or when I realized when I had anxiety and why like I was yelling, then I realized really quickly that's why my mom was yelling. And so it made that anger towards her kind of gone, because I was like, whoa, she was just reacting and didn't know what that was. And when she knew better, she did better. And I'm going to do the same. So it's like, let's let go of that guilt and like move on kind of things. And
Yes.
I don't
Totally.
know. I really love that, you know, we can't say that to us now, but like, I don't know about you guys, but like my mom is now dealing with that like a couple years down the road. So it's nice that we're now in our 30s. It feels like it's been forever, but like, I'm glad we're dealing with in our 30s, and it's not like another 20 years of those bad patterns and having to deal with it in our 50s, 60s down the road.
100%.
And
Yeah.
hopefully we can help the conversations for the next generation so that, you know, they can do that. Maybe, I mean, 20s is a hard time. I don't think anybody listens to anybody in your 20s, but at least maybe, you know, you were mid 30s, so you know, it's like, okay, cool, maybe if I had these conversations when I was like, you know, more 25, 30, maybe I wouldn't, you know, but we're here now, so this is great. Is there anything else, Erin, that you would want to say that we've missed today? Any bit of advice, any part of your journey with anxiety that you would want to share with our community?
I just mostly want to put it out there that, you know, like we were just saying, with the stigma of anxiety and mental health and depression, all of it, that there is nothing wrong with you. Like, if you suffer from any type of mental illness, like, that is like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. You're not weak. And the fact that you actually wake up day to day and still function despite what you're struggling with, that actually makes you strong as fuck. And
Oh, yes.
we need to stop making people feel bad for struggling.
Yep. And that it's not normal, because it
Yeah,
is.
it's not normal, but there's
And
nothing wrong with you. Like, you
no,
shouldn't,
yeah,
you know, like, I also kind of hate this whole, you know, it's okay to not be okay. Like, I agree 100%, but how many times a week is it okay to not be okay? Like, we need to look at
yeah,
this really hard. And if you're not okay, like 6 out of 7 days, every single week, like, something needs to be dealt with. And there's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with you. You're not weak, but like, it's not okay. And you're strong as fuck for living through that.
and I totally agree with you that, you know, there's a part to that saying it's okay to not be okay, but there's also kind of like, I'm not going to say like not necessarily an excuse, but you have to like watch that boundary too. You have to put like a boundary on that, because that can get out of control. I know from personal experience where it's just like you ignore it for so long, and then all of a sudden it creates this huge monster that's almost undealable or you know.
Yeah, totally. And not just like in yourself getting lost in that, okay, it's okay to not be okay, but just knowing that, you know, if you're not okay for so many days in a row, that you need to reach out, because it's not okay to be feeling that crappy for so long. Like, you need to not necessarily like take command yourself, but know when you need to ask for help.
Totally. And it's like, I don't know what happened. And maybe this has been over generations, or I'm not sure, but I'm not sure why we feel like, when did help and asking for it and coming together as a team, like, you know, at work, you have your teammates, you know, like in your life with, you know, like not always together, but usually, you know, have mom, you have married, you have relationship, you work together, like you have friends, you work together, you know, so it's like, why is it so hard to ask for help when it's like, that's what like human nature is, to work together.
Totally.
And it's like, why is that so hard to just be human nature and just do it?
Yeah, I don't know why we're just trying to be so strong by ourselves, when clearly, you know, you can see even in other, you know, mammals out there, like, people work as teams, animals work as teams. Like, that's how you
Yeah.
create strength, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, that's a big thing I learned to calm my anxiety too, and like placing different relationships in my life. Like, for example, some friends you just end up seeing at the gym, and you don't end up like going out and or having over at your house. And I think for a long time, like my anxiety be like, oh, because they don't want to hang out with you or whatever. And then you're just like, no, that relationship is just at the gym, and that's cool that they're just a fitness friend. And then I have my work friends. And I think like identifying where those teams are and not being like, oh, this person has to be at all parts of my team. You know what I mean? Just to be in my life.
Totally. Yeah, it comes down to kind of tracking too, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
not just tracking who's good for you in which parts of your life, but also just even yourself, right? If you're noticing and you're tracking, okay, every time I'm like, you know, a week before my period, I have 5 days straight of anxiety. Okay, what might be that relate, like what is causing that, right? Or, you
Yeah.
know, when I'm feeling really good, what team of friends do I have around me? And maybe when I'm not feeling so good for 5 days in a row, who have I been hanging out with, or who has been missing in my life, right?
Oh, totally. And it's so crazy how it all relates. And that's funny that you say that because I actually today, like anything, I don't normally cry for no reason, but today I just felt like extra sensitive with everything I was talking about. And I'm like, okay, I am nowhere near my period. What the fuck is going on? Like, why do I want to cry? And then I looked at my app and it was like, oh, sorry guys, information. But I was like, oh, you're ovulating. I was like, of course.
Right.
Of course. But then I was like immediately like, okay, so I'm calling that what it is and I'm letting it go and just being kinder to myself. Instead, I would like get anxious and not even know that that was a thing. Be like, oh, you're crazy. Like, oh, you know. And so I just, yeah, I love and then you go to your people at that time when you're, you know, ovulating or get your period. And then they just remind you, like, no, bitch, it's Aunt Flo. She got you all turned up.
Yeah, totally.
And it's true. And it all links together. And I think that, I don't know about for you, but for me, for anything that where I'm anxious, it's like if I can kind of like identify it or call it out, like, okay, this is what it is. It's a reaction to and I can fix it. It feels a lot better than the unknown. If I don't know where this fear and this panic and this, you know, it just makes it a little bit easier to swallow, I find.
100%. I totally get you.
And then it's like you need those people to call it out.
Yeah,
For you.
sometimes you have your people that just need them to call it out, or you need to be like, no, you know what, I need to step away from you because I know that, you know, this is what's happening. It's because I'm around these types of people that I'm feeling this way. So tracking and just realizing how many days in a row, you know, you weren't okay for, just paying attention to all that, right? It's just,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know, it's like
All
it's
your
a whole
signals.
process and lots of
Yes,
learning.
it's more. Oh, totally. And it's more than just one thing, right? And it all connects. Like, I don't know about you, like we're saying, if you know, if you don't have all those fundamentals and it starts to spiral and then you feel like crap and then you eat more crap and then you just like, and then you feel bad about it. It's guilt. It's like such a dirty cycle. And so it's like, yeah, you have to have your hype people. You have to have, you know, make sure you're checking on yourself too, because your hype people, if you only show them you're good and you don't ever show them the bad, how they're not always going to know that either. Right. So it's like being able to be vulnerable and opening up about that. And I think we can all attest, even doing any of these shows, it feels so relieving just getting it out there and feeling that relatability, even if it sucks what we're relating. I wish it was like, hey, we all live at the beach and that's what we relate in.
Yeah. But honestly, like just, yeah, how we were talking about, you know, don't do it alone. Like just
Yeah.
talking about it is amazing. Like I thought I was going to die the other day when we got on this and started this podcast. And then as soon as we all started talking about it and relating, and you don't feel so alone, like I feel like a million times better.
Yeah, like more empowered. And that's what we're just like, I think that's where we're flipping the narrative about like when you have these certain things, like, yeah, it does suck. And there's going to be times where it's really going to suck. You're not going to be able to do the things that you normally do to bring yourself back or whatever. Like, we're not going to say it's rainbows, but there's also a flip side to it that if you can kind of work with your mindset and your perception and kind of like identify if it really requires a really negative feeling and to like set off your whole day, or you can just call it out what it is and be like, oh, cool, and use that as fuel or realize that it's a reaction and fix what the root problem is if you can. I think it's so like empowering. And like, I don't think without the anxiety and all that, I don't think I'd be as empathetic and compassionate and creative and artistic as I am. So it's like it's hard to be pissed off about it, because it's like once you can try to fuel it for the good, it's like it's almost like your tiny superpower that you just kind of want to learn more about, and so you can really use it to your advantage.
Yeah, exactly. And you just realize, like, if you can get through some of the like crazy, complete, dark, deep holes that you're in sometimes doing this stuff or feeling this way, like how strong you actually are. And that is in itself empowering. The fact that you can get out
Totally.
of those situations. It's, you know, it's definitely not okay that you had to live through them, but it's so empowering that you
No,
survived it and you continue to survive it.
for sure. And I think that's for me, my biggest thing is I used to always concentrate on the situation and like, why did this happen and all that. And like, it was against me. And then now it's just kind of like, well, life just kind of sucks for everybody all the time at certain times and everyone gets different degrees. So like, what can I learn from this? Like, is this trying to direct me in a different path? Is it, I don't know. I just became a lot more critical thinking about things instead of just like letting my emotions fuel everything. And people told me that in my 20s, and I wish I would have listened more then, but here we are now. You don't realize that it's like your anxiety, like you said, like acting out or yelling or acting a certain way. And now that I know, I don't react that way anymore. I don't take things as personally because I'm like, oh, fuck, it's business, whatever.
Yeah.
But before I was like, oh my God, everyone hates me. And now I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, totally.
It's great to grow up sometimes.
Yeah, if only we would have done it earlier, right?
Yeah, but here we are now, and we're here to help the next generation. And I think, like you said, it's really, we wanted the podcast to be just something where it felt like you're just coming on and talking to your friends and just talking normal shit. Wish we could have all do it together, but here we are. It's the best that we can do, and I feel like it's even more connection than I could have ever imagined after the year that we had. And I don't know about you, but like the messages that people have had, just feeling connected, and that's exactly what we wanted to do. So I really want to thank you for being super honest. I know there's going to be a lot of people and a lot of moms that are going to relate to your story, and it was great for me to learn because, like I said, I mean, my cats are in the room right now destroying any sort of silence in the background, but I don't really understand what the kids and all that. So it really helped, and I think that helps new moms, and I hope it helped you as well, like learn maybe some new things about yourself and be super proud of yourself. So I really want to thank you again for coming on the show today and sharing all your experiences. And I don't think it'll probably be the last time you'll come on our show, but thanks for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having
do you
me.
have anything do you have anything to add, or we got it all?
Yeah, no, I think you kind of hit it all. And yeah, again, thank you so much for having me. And it was such a pleasure. And like you said, just with the year that we've had, like, it's just so amazing that you girls are doing this right now. It's like the perfect timing because so many people that maybe even never struggled with this before are probably struggling with it because of this past year.
Oh, totally. And that's how we both felt because both of us were already on that self reflection journey, and like about 1 to 2 years prior to the pandemic. So we were kind of a little bit, I think, nobody could be mentally prepared, but it was kind of more like I'd already dealt with my shit. So I wasn't like living with my demons as much anymore. I was definitely away from them. And that felt really relieving. And I hope that even if people don't suffer, let's say, from anxiety, but those moments, I hope they remember all the things that we said and see if that works for them, or at least open the conversation or feel less alone or anything. We just want people to take something away. And we couldn't do this without our guests and our audience either, which is growing really fast. And honestly, it's just so mind blowing and awesome and surreal. But yeah, so I think that's gonna wrap it up for this episode, you guys. I really hope that you enjoyed all the girls today. Their stories, I don't know about you, motivated me to keep going on my own journey of self-discovery with this and feeling more empowered than trapped. The next episode, we're going to talk about depression. Definitely comes in hand with anxiety, and we're really going to dive deeper into that one next week. So tune in, and thank you guys again so much for coming. Until next time.